Hey guys, Paul here. So today I wanted to talk about card game wars because I honestly think that they're kind of stupid. What do I mean by card game wars? Well, basically, I've seen this sort of uptick in the amount of people from different card game communities, Yu-Gi-Oh, Magic, Pokemon, One Piece Lorcana even, who sort of feel like, I guess, they have to go to bat for their favorite card game or the card game that they play and attack, people who maybe insist or suggest that a different card game is in any way better or more legitimate or whatever, right? So I've seen a few different memes and like posts and tweets and stuff about this. The first one that comes to mind is this one post that I saw on Twitter about the winning Pokemon World Championship deck was like worth $50 or $60 or something like that. So it's like, you can buy the deck that won for like $50. And it was sort of posted in stark contrast to games like Yu-Gi-Oh, where the top performing deck tends to cost, several $100s. And so people got really up in arms about this. Some people were like, oh, yeah, well, sure, like Pokemon might be cheap, but at least our game has interaction. Or, well, the deck that ended up winning the Pokemon World Championship was just this equivalent of a stupid stun runic deck anyway, so it's boring and sucks and dumb. But I guess what I saw when I saw that post was just like, well, I don't really see why people are so like offended at the idea. And by people, I mean like Yu-Gi-Oh players. Why did Yu-Gi-Oh players take so much offense to somebody saying that, well, there's a card game that maybe could be cheaper or more accessible than their own? Like that statement doesn't really, in my opinion, have any bearing on like how much you can enjoy Yu-Gi-Oh. Just because another card game might be a little bit cheaper doesn't mean that like your love or enjoyment of Yu-Gi-Oh should really be changed or affected in any way. I have also seen posts comparing like, the Pokemon World Championship and the huge, venue size and crowd size to the Yu-Gi-Oh! YCS that was happening that weekend, which was, I think, YCS Sacramento, and it was kind of a smaller event than usual. And during the finals, there weren't a lot of people like, sitting in the chairs watching on stream and stuff at the event. And so people were kind of posting this as this example of like, wow, look how popular Pokemon is, look how boring and uninteresting and like dead looking Yu-Gi-Oh is. Now, in this case, I have to sort of side with the Yu-Gi-Oh players, or sort of side with them, I guess, in that like, okay, why would somebody post this anyway? Like, you can compare these two games, but I don't really see what the point is. Like, yeah, Pokemon's a larger media property, and so there were multiple games also happening at their worlds, right? Like, they have like Pokemon TCG, VGC, Pokemon Go, Pokemon Unite. There's all kinds of things going on, and like different senior and junior leagues. But like, I don't think that comparing the games really makes a point that's healthy or productive. Like it feels like you're just sort of insulting people that like one game and for no particular reason. Like, haha, my game's more popular than yours. Great. I don't really get it, I suppose. And even just the overall like just I don't know. I hear sometimes people saying like, I quit Yu-Gi-Oh for this other game. I quit Yu-Gi-Oh to start playing One Piece, or like I quit Yu-Gi-Oh to play this other game. And again, I'm just coming at this from a Yu-Gi-Oh perspective. I've noticed like arguments that have happened actually between Magic and Pokemon before. I've seen people arguing about like Lorcana versus Magic. I remember when Lorcana was first announced, people were like, "Yeah, this is gonna like unseat Magic. It's gonna be the Magic killer." And I'm always just kind of like, where are people coming from with these like arguments, takes, I don't know, claims? Like, are we excited at the idea that like a card game is going to suddenly fail or die because of the release of another card game? Are we excited at the idea that, one card game is, you know, doing way better and is way more popular and that like, maybe speaks to its innate value and appeal? Are we so concerned with the idea of like one card game being deeper and more interactive? I mean, I saw a post. This is like a little further back. I saw a post where people were like ranking the card games from like most to least complex as like a weird flex thing. Like, oh well, like Pokemon or Magic or Vanguard are so super, drop dead easy to learn and play. Yu-Gi-Oh on the other hand takes skill and knowledge and all these things, and so like Yu-Gi-Oh players are therefore smarter. And I'm just kind of like, I don't know, like. I guess I don't think that any of that stuff is really coming in good faith, and I've always find myself more than anything just confused about it. Like, I don't know, I've played Yu-Gi-Oh for a long time, and when you play Yu-Gi-Oh, you go to card shops all the time, right? Like you're gonna go to play at locals, and I've never really found myself thinking that like I am better than or like higher than another card game community. I mean, I think like the best I could maybe say, or best, worst, whatever, is maybe sometimes being jealous of a different card game community for maybe getting like a larger turnout at locals. But it's never really been to the extent that like I want to find some reason to rip Magic the Gathering players away from Magic and towards Yu-Gi-Oh, because I just don't think that's really productive. Like there've been moments in my local Yu-Gi-Oh scene where it's like, okay, maybe our local tournaments are only getting like 10 or 12 people and they're not really big, but then Magic tournaments seem to always get 20 to 30 people. But as far as I'm concerned, I don't think that's like a mark against Yu-Gi-Oh as a game. I don't think that it makes like Yu-Gi-Oh a boring game or a bad game or a mismanaged game. I think it just means that like, in different areas, right? Different sort of regions. Sometimes Yu-Gi-Oh is a more popular game at some places. Magic might be more popular at some places. I guess to sort of check myself a little bit, I do find myself sort of like intrigued by what card games do to sort of like attract new people. And I do sometimes find myself talking about like how it feels like games like Lorcana, which has like a big emphasis on store leagues, or One Piece, which has a pretty big emphasis on like strong prizing with like alternate art cards and like or serialized cards, things like that. I think those are things that Yu-Gi-Oh could certainly learn from. Like it could certainly afford to maybe try that out with the Yu-Gi-Oh prize support structure. Or I've said that I think like Yu-Gi-Oh needs local leagues. So I think stuff like that would be like helpful. But I don't think that it's a matter of like Yu-Gi-Oh being bad and them being good, or vice versa, or that like some game doesn't deserve it. Just that as far as I'm concerned, I mean, card gaming is, in the big scheme of things, it's a niche hobby. Like, if you play any card game, you should honestly be just thankful that you have a local community, because like we're kind of in a world where, and this is maybe getting a little off topic, but I hope that it will come back to the original thing, which is that like, if you play card games, right, like a lot of kids nowadays, they just get thrown a tablet or a smartphone and they log on to, I don't know, Fortnite, Roblox, Five Nights, something, and like they play that, and they are not really getting in the ability to even like play card games like a lot of us did when we were kids. And it's like, so card games are kind of like this, I don't know if I call it like a dying audience or anything like that, but it's sort of a finite group of people who have a shared interest. And so I guess as far as I'm concerned, there's not really any need to try to like cheer on the demise of a given card game or insult the people who play a different card game than yourself. In fact, it would maybe even be in more people's best interest to try out other card games. Like if you're a primarily Yu-Gi-Oh player, then try your hand at Pokemon or Magic. Like that's what I did, right? Like I tried out Magic and I had a pretty good time with it. I had some faults and gripes. I had some things I really liked. It was a very stark difference from Yu-Gi-Oh, and I haven't even played that much of it. Like I mostly played Commander format, but I also want to try playing like Standard format, I believe is what it's called, just to see what that's like, because 100 card decks are kind of big and unwieldy, and like 4 player is cool, but like sometimes a little dull for me. So I kind of wondered like, okay, what is more of a one-on-one scene sort of like? So that's something that I'd like to do. I've even considered like dabbling in One Piece, just because One Piece seems to be the card game that so many former or ex Yu-Gi-Oh players go towards. So I want to see like what the appeal is there. But I think that switching card games can be good if you find yourself sort of burned out of a certain game. Like, people get fed up with Yu-Gi-Oh whenever there's these tier 0 formats or the ban list hasn't come out, and it can feel like you're having to keep it all bottled up and the anger is like rising and all this stuff. And it's like, well, maybe just take a break, right? And like try out a different card game. And then you'll grow some appreciation for what each different game brings to the table, because they're not all the same. Different card games just offer different perks and benefits compared to others. And it's fine and it's okay. Point being, I just think that like card game wars are kind of dumb, kind of corny even. Like, we're nerds, we're playing our favorite games. Let's support each other. Let's be nice. Let's not, compare games in a negative light. I think we can all learn from each other, but I don't think that there's really any need to tear anybody down over the choice of card game that they play, or try to highlight that one card game is better or worse or should die or whatever. Okay, cool. I think I've gone on long enough with this one, but hopefully you guys understand kind of what I said. You can let me know below in the comments, what all card games have you played? Because I think that's always sort of intriguing. And also, how do you feel about like, this comparing and contrasting of card games? Am I maybe blowing this out of proportion and it's not really all that big of a deal? Or do you think this is something that you've observed and maybe needs to kind of like change? Or maybe it's justified. I don't know. Okay, cool. That's going to be it. I will see you guys in the next one. Bastard.